I grew up in...
First, what's your name and where did you grow up? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no problem. My name is Erik Allen. I grew up in Kennewick, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your parents, your siblings?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up really in what I thought was a typical household. Went to Sunday school, played Little League. My dad would take my best friend Dave and I and throw us in dumpsters on a Saturday morning and say, hey, go find treasure. And everything was good. And then my parents got divorced when I was 11 years old. And I have no idea why, still to this day. But they got divorced. My mom got together with a guy who was very physically abusive almost immediately. And I remember there was times when like they'd be fighting and arguing, and I'd be like looking through their bedroom window, and he'd be hitting her with a cordless phone when those were around. And I'd call the police. They'd show up. My mom wouldn't press charges, rinse and repeat.
Okay.
And then they got pregnant, and they decided to move us from Kennewick up to Stevensville, Montana in the middle of my 8th grade year. And I have a younger sister who's 4 years younger than me. And then we moved to Montana, and they rent this house. It was awesome. It was on 5 acres, 2 ponds right by the Bitterroot River. This house, though, it only had 3 bedrooms. There was one for them, one for my little brother who's a couple months old, and one for my sister. I said, Eric, you could live in the garage. It literally had a plastic tarp in the middle of the garage that separated my bed from the truck that would pull in. Luckily, my half had the fireplace that kept me semi-warm in the middle of the winter of Montana. But, the abuse continued. It was still going on, but it went on more because we were further away from police out there. And there was one night when I was about 13 years old that came home arguing. Wasn't anything different than any other night. But I felt, as I was brushing my teeth, and I heard them arguing, I felt like God was saying, dude, you got to turn around. You got to see what the heck's going on. And so the way the house was set up was behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to the garage door where my room was at. And as I took a look around that corner, I see this man on top of my mom. Boom, boom, across her face. And I walked up and I grabbed a cast iron pan out of the cupboard and I swung as hard as I could and I split the back of his head open. And he turned around and he said, what then? As he did that, I took another swing and split his forehead open. Did knock him out, lots of blood.
How old were you?
About 13. Wow. Cops show up, take him to jail. I thought I was the hero. And unfortunately, I was not the hero. I was kicked out of that house a couple months later. I had to go live with my buddy Forrest. I slept on the hardwood floors of this house in downtown Stevensville. And it was just him and his dad. And him and I would steal a cigarette from his dad's pack in the morning and walk to school. And after my freshman year of high school, I moved back to live with my dad in Tri-Cities.
Wow.
So that was the first part up to my sophomore year of high school there.
Did he press charges or?
No, didn't press
charges.
No, I never got it. In fact, I never saw him again really after that until I was about 21.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay. Then, so fast forward, you did mention you went to jail.
Yeah, so when I went back to live with my dad in Tri-Cities, I went to Kamaikan High School, and he rented a house by the school, and I had to, bought me a bus pass, and he would fill the house with Hunger Man meals and cereal and milk, and put $20 in the cup for my lunch money for the week. And then he would say, hey, that's your lunch money. And then I would see my dad in passing, though, 2 to 3 times a month. He would go stay with his girlfriend. So I really had just free range to do whatever the heck I wanted. Yeah. So I was getting into drugs. I was getting stoned before school, at lunch, after school. And when I was 18 years old, I was a senior in high school, went on a camping trip with some buddies, and cops raided our campsite. And we were camping with a bunch of other guys. And they said, well, are you guys drinking? And we all said no, because none of us were. However, there were guys that were there, and they left that morning. And they said, well, let's just pop open this cooler. And of course, there's beer in there that we didn't know about. And so they said, I want to see everyone's ID. So I'm getting my ID out of my tent. And I hear this guy, or the officer, say, whose bong is this? Well, I'm in my tent. And it was mine. And this kid goes, oh, that's Erik Allen's. And I'm in the tent. I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, what just happened right now? So I was the only one who got a citation and had to go back to jail. Not that night, I had to go to court and then had one night in jail. And I just wrote a note to my dad, hey, I'm staying at a friend's house. I'll be back tomorrow. Never told him for like 10 years. I just checked myself in and checked myself out the next day.
Wow.
Yeah. Dayton, Washington, that's where I had to go to jail.
Dayton, Washington.
Yeah.
That's it's more west.
Yeah.
Tri-Cities or?
I'm not quite, gosh, I don't even know where it's at. It's probably an hour and a half away from Tri-Cities, but yeah.
Yeah.
Black and white chain gang outfit, man, bright orange slippers.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Not really, actually.
No.
No.
So after that, you were still.
Yeah, I got a year probation, and I had to just call into my probation officer every month. And I could have been drug tested, so I didn't smoke pot for a year, but I started changing alcohol, so I started drinking a lot. And then 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I woke up to a Post-it note on the mirror that said, you can't comply with house rules, you have 48 hours to get out. So at that point, I was like, well, crap, here we go. And so I started living with friends and living with aunts and uncles for a bit. And between the ages of 18 and 21, I moved 21 times, living on couches. And I was living off credit cards, couldn't hold a job. And by the time I was 21 years old, I was $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That
it was
young.
that young, yeah. But I'm glad I did it that young because I was totally irresponsible and was able to pay $300 to a lawyer who got me out of everything. And for the next 7 years, it sucked. I could barely afford, rent, or you couldn't even get a checking account or savings account without a cosigner. So it was pretty wild.
What other obstacles past that?
Well, I became a pretty good drinker, a pretty big drinker when I got to Seattle. I always wanted to get into the music business. So I was working at a record store in the mall. A guy walks in, he says, hey, I work for Universal Records. I'm here to put up some posters. I'm like, cool, man. How do I get your job? Like, jokingly said that to him. And he goes, oh, well, you have to be in college and you have to contact this lady and then you can go and work for Universal Records in downtown Seattle is where I was living at the time. I'd moved up there with $100 in my pocket. And so they said, okay, cool. So I went to the community college there in Bellevue, signed up, paid $300 for an internship class, took my receipt and emailed it to Universal and said, look, I'm in college. I want to be an intern for you. Yeah. And they said, cool, you're in. And I never went to college and I got my foot in the door. But what that did was that gave me 2 to 3 concerts a week with open tabs. And so I was living the rock star lifestyle without being a rock star. Open tabs and backstage shenanigans and all that fun stuff. So did that for about a year before I got laid off back in the days of Napster when that happened.
I remember Napster.
Yeah.
So what did you do after that, after you lost your...
It was my 1-year anniversary at Universal when I got laid off. And I started working at Starbucks as a night manager. And I lived in a really ghetto apartment in Renton, Washington, across the street from Jimi Hendrix, from where he was buried there. Wow. And I was working at the Starbucks up the road as the night manager. And one night a girl walked in and said, hey, we've got a cool college-age event down at our church. Would you be interested in going? And I was depressed and I had no friends and she was good looking. Yep, what time do I need to be there? Yeah. So I went and I ran into these guys that I knew from 4 or 5 years earlier from Tri-Cities. And I was like, dude, that's so weird. What are you doing up here? And so we got to chatting. And a month later, I went out and partied with this band that I was managing. We were in Prosser, Washington. And I woke up after a night of partying on Easter morning, 2004. And I just felt God going, dude, you're going down a path that's going to end your life real quick. And so I decided in that moment to give my life to Christ. I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, everything in that moment. Gave my life to Christ, texted that girl and said, hey, thanks for coming in the store. Maybe I'll see you at the Starbucks sometime. And a month later, we were dating, and we've been married for almost 19 years now.
Oh, incredible. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. Did you have role models growing up that led you in one direction or the other?
You know, my buddy Dave, I met him in first grade, still my best friend today. He lived up the street from me when all the chaos was going on after my parents split up. And even before they split up. But I would go stay at his house all the time. And his parents were the role models for me. They were just open arms to this strange kid who lived down the street that came from a crazy family and still that way today. So they were my role models. Them and my grandma, who is 89 years old, I think, and she's like 4'8", man, and still just rocking and rolling, dude. So yeah, those are the people that were really the main role models for me.
So you told me a little bit about your career path now, currently.
Yeah.
What led you to the career path you're currently in?
I've always been intrigued by sales and connecting with people. And so I've had a lot of sales jobs over the years. When I was 18 years old, I started with selling cars at Rustine Ford down there in Tri-Cities and really only did it because they were going to pay me $1,800 a month, whether I sold the car or not for the first 3 months. And I was like, this is like P. Diddy money, you know? But always done sales. And I currently work for a SaaS swag management company. So shirts, hats, cups, etc. I do customer success. So I work post sales, trying to grow the accounts, etc. And been working from home since 2015. But really my passion, like that's what pays the bills. My passion is podcasting, right? So I started a company in 2012 called Top Rated MMA. It was an apparel company where I got to meet MMA fighters and ended up working with John Prince Albert, who was on The Ultimate Fighter. He was our first signed fighter to our brand, and did that till 2017. And I decided to stop the apparel side and just start talking with MMA fighters and ask them why the heck they want to get in a cage, get punched in the face. And that slowly evolved. I did 256 episodes of that show. And in 2018, I came across a guy named Ed Milet while I was searching for YouTube motivational videos. And I was like, dude, that guy, he's got awesome values. I like the way that he's doing things. And I said, I want to talk to people like he does, which is entrepreneurs and world changers and success-minded people. And so that really got me to get into what I do today, which is the Erik Allen Show. And I talk with folks like that. But I almost manifested it, this opportunity to speak with Ed, because in 2018, he had about 1 million followers on Instagram. He said, do a video, tag me on it, tell me why you want to be successful, and I'm going to pull a winner. Out of all the 1 million people, I did a video and I got picked, and it landed me a phone call with Ed, which was episode 12 of my show, and that just opened the door for massive, massive entrepreneurs now that have been on my show.
What setbacks have you had?
Oh man, it's a learning curve when you're doing podcasting or trying to get known online. I think for me, I work full time, so the setback is really trying to like figure out that time. How can I work in my business? How can I improve my business, be a family man, not miss out on family events, and then still work and pay the bills? It was a goal of mine to get my wife to come home and be a stay-at-home mom. And when my daughter was 6 months old, I made enough money for her to do that. And my daughter's 13 now, so she's been home and she does homeschooling, and we have an amazing life, man. I've been working from home since 2015, so it's just me and my family all the time, man.
Yeah, well, that's life. That's incredible. Can you share a personal decision that was difficult to make in your professional life, and how you arrived at the decision?
You know, for me, the decision for my wife and I to move to Idaho was a big deal. That was we lived out in Covington, Washington, and we owned a home. It was the first one we bought in 2006 at the height of the market, which was the stupidest time to buy, but we bought it back then, and we ended up short selling in 2014 and made a move to Idaho. But we decided to get away from some toxic members of our family members. And I had to have that conversation with my wife. I said, hey, I want us to be good. I want us to be safe. I want us to have a family unit of just us and not have to worry about drama. And so we just packed our stuff. We sold the house and we moved down to Nampa, Idaho. And we were down there for 2 years. And then we said, we actually moved to the other part of Idaho. So let's move up to Coeur d'Alene. So we've been in Coeur d'Alene since 2016, man. But I think that decision to leave that area and leave a job, I took a $60,000 pay cut to go to Idaho. My wife and I were living off food stamps and WIC. Our rent was $900 and I was only taking home $600 every 2 weeks. And it was like barely able to live and survive, but we made it, and here we are today, man.
Yeah. Can you tell us like your plans for the future?
Yeah, dude, I love coaching people on how to start podcasts. I love teaching people like, go out and start a podcast, whether it's for a business or a story or a brand. We all have one of those three. And so I love being able to teach people how to start, launch, and run a podcast. I just released an ebook. You can get on my website and they can go out and I give all the details on that. I coach one-on-one. They can take the pre-recorded video course. And so the big step though is I've written a book. It's in the first draft is done. I signed a publishing deal about a year ago of my story. And so the goal is to send that draft to the publisher by the end of this year. And hopefully next year we have a book out, man. And so I'm really comfortable behind the mic, but I haven't done a lot of public speaking. So I joined Toastmasters this year to get better at public speaking and really just trying to get better in front of people, man. And so really the future is walking away from the 9-to-5, doing full-time coaching and podcasting and speaking. That's the goal.
Yeah, definitely difficult to overcome those challenges and talk in front of people.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a whole nother realm.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's actually pretty damn difficult. So what, can you tell us maybe some personal advice that you would give to someone to inspire or to make significant changes in their own personal life or career?
Yeah. Here's the thing about life is we all get a choice. We can decide to stay on the path and keep our past holding us back, and we can choose to live that victim mentality forever. But one of the things that got me out of that mess was after I gave my life to Christ, I started changing my environment. So I went from the party scene to finding men in the church that had great businesses, they had great walks with Christ, they had great marriages, and I took them out to Starbucks and I said, tell me what you're doing to do what you do today. And it was in those conversations that I realized that my past and other people's opinions of me does not define my future. And once I realized that I could make a change at any moment and change whatever my past was, I can leave it behind me and move forward and start fresh. And anybody has that option. So once you do that, step into that, get comfortable being uncomfortable, getting into areas where, you know what, it's a new realm for you, and you can drop that and you can start fresh, man. Live your life how you want. Hang around people that are living the life that you want to live, and just being around them is going to impact you and inspire you to live the life that you can.
Is there anything you'd like to leave viewers with to inspire, to motivate people that are maybe lost, looking for guidance, looking for someone to look up to as a mentor?
Yeah.
To maybe set them back on the right track, or to give them a direction to move forward to.
Yeah. Seek out people that are living the life that you want to live, whether that's at a church. If you go to church, do that. If you want to be a business person, go find local business people. If you want to go find someone that's doing improv, go do that. Like, go surround yourself with people that are living the life that you want to live. Because being around them, like I said, is going to inspire you to change your life and get away from drugs or addictions or whatnot. If you hang around people who have addictions, you're going to be staying in that realm. Get away from that. If you want to make a change, don't live that victim mentality. And then there's two things that I want to leave people with is that will change your life drastically. And number one is turn off the news. I haven't watched the news for 10 years. They've got their own agenda. I could care less what the heck's going on or who's in the White House. Turn off the news. And then it's just not my job to judge anybody. Like, if you're not hurting yourself or hurting others, then I could care less what you want to identify as. If you want to identify as a toaster, I don't really care, right? But like, man, if people stopped judging people and people just turned off the news and hung around people that they wanted to live the life with, the world would be a way better place, man.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming by. And thanks for coming, man.
Absolutely, man. It was an honor. I appreciate it. That was fun.